High greenhouse gas emitters should pay for carbon they produce, says IMF, greenhouse gas emissions.
Here's a summary of the article.
Companies with high greenhouse gas emissions should be subject to a carbon price of $75 a ton of carbon dioxide, the International Monetary Fund has said, as a way of reaching the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. A carbon floor price would mean that companies, including energy generators and heavy industries, would have to pay for the carbon they produce. At present, many countries and regions have their own carbon pricing systems, but there is no globally agreed carbon price. Kristalina Georgieva, managing director of the IMF, said, "To help save the planet we must work together to prevent a climate crisis from turning into a catastrophe. A robust price on carbon can play a hugely important role, and even more so when it is a product of an international agreement. We see an international carbon floor price as a viable option to reach such an agreement and will continue our work on it." Bob Ward, Policy and Communications Director at the Grantham Institute on Climate Change at the London School of Economics, who was not involved with the proposals, said, "This is an excellent initiative and leadership by the IMF. We have already seen in the UK that even a relatively modest carbon floor price can help to accelerate the phase out of coal in particular. A carbon floor price removes some of the uncertainty for businesses and allows them to invest with greater confidence in technologies and processes to reduce emissions. Carbon pricing can take many forms in practice, from taxes on fuels to carbon trading systems, such as that operated by the EU, under which businesses are allocated or must buy tradable permits to produce carbon dioxide, with laggards forced to buy the excess permits of those that have cut carbon fastest. The EU started its carbon trading system in 2005, and China, parts of the US, and other countries have since taken up similar approaches, but still only about a fifth of global greenhouse gas emissions fall under any form of pricing system.
This post received a score of 3,700, with an upvote ratio of 96%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Obvious, yes. There has to be a penalty for global warming gas emission placed at the wellhead or mine pit or fracking pad. Yes, and that has always, at least over the last 100 years at least, evident.
For American companies, if the Republicans gain full control again, they'd probably turn any kind of carbon tax into a write-off.
Corporations run the US. There will be no laws without an easily exploitable loopholes. It's not even a case of eating their cake and having it, too. It's the illusion that a cake even exists.
Isn't that what carbon tax is?
Everyone agrees. Until the government asks them if they want carbon taxes doesn't help. The governments are also full of fucking morons who don't get the carbon tax with a tax dividend part. Idiots. If you want to make it appealing, you add on a tax-neutral dividend. If you want to yank the whole thing, you don't have a dividend. It's like politicians purposely undermine it.
Even if implemented, it's not a solution, as the big emitters could afford to destroy us.
It still effectively makes environmentally friendly alternatives more cost-effective, which is important in transitioning to them.
Not too long ago, in the middle of the NFT craze, some people started saying that their operation was ecologically friendly because they paid for the estimated pollution. We can't really afford to play small incentive with companies large enough to pay for their extra pollution.
Greenhouse gas emitters, picture is of a nuclear power plant.
FYI, the picture's caption says, "And pay for the carbon they've produced," since the reports in the 70s when they became aware of the problem.
And how should said money be spent? Just spend it as a tax money, and in the process incentivize the consumption which creates CO2. Spend it on super expensive green projects which end up doing a minimal difference, or no difference at all. Or maybe we could start spending said money on actually fighting the greenhouse emissions? Now I do understand that doing so is probably not going to make rich people richer, but it might leave a better planet for the next generations, which is a small bonus.
How does paying get the carbon out of the air?
1. Carbon pricing makes emissions more expensive, so less will be consumed. It can be the difference maker that makes efficiency upgrades economically feasible. 2. The money collected from carbon taxes can be used for green energy projects and efficiency retrofits. It is too late for the carbon already in the air unless there are huge advances in carbon capture tech.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.